Hey finger drummers, my name is Dragon from Dragon Finger Drums, and today I want to talk to you about the problem with the mirror layout for finger drumming. So, when it comes to finger drumming on a pad controller, there are many different pad layouts and setups that you can use to achieve this. Some people opt for a layout that allows them to put melodic samples on there in addition to one-shot drums. Some people want to play for live performance purposes, and some people want to play realistic kit style drumming on the pads with their fingers. So this is the method that I am familiar with, and this is the method that I personally teach. I personally don't teach the other methods that I mentioned. I don't teach sample chopping or beat making. I have nothing against that. It's a totally great way to use the pads, but that's just not my forte. So when it comes to playing realistic drums on a pad controller, you have your software set up, your drum software or your drum samples, and you have your kick drums and your snare drum sounds and your toms and your cymbals, your hi-hats, all that stuff. And you want to figure out what's the best way to put them on my pad so that I can play drums. Now, one layout that I've seen really commonly across many different teachers and instructors is what's called the mirror layout. So basically, in a nutshell, it's set up so that each hand has the same access to the same drums and cymbals. So basically, let's say we put, just working on our dominant hand for right now, like our right hand, let's say I put a kick drum here and a snare drum down here and a hi-hat here and then some toms, up here and a couple crash cymbals. So that would be the entire kit, and this dominant hand would have equal access to all of those, spread amongst the fingers, of course. And then they would mirror that layout on the other side. So if the kick was here on the dominant side, then it would be here on the non-dominant side, and the snare would be here and the hi-hats and so on. So it would be a complete mirror image on both sides so that each hand would have equal access to the same drums and cymbals. And the way that this would be played is by alternating your hands. So just playing alternating hits with your hands. So basically, if you want to play a straight hi-hat pattern, you're playing your alternating 16th notes with your hi-hats, and then you want to add some kick and snare and kick and snare. The idea is that you'd be alternating your hands all the time, and every hit that you wanted to do, no matter what drum it was on, wherever that hit landed on the beat, the hand that was currently coming down to play would be able to play that hit because each hand would have equal access to all the drums. So if I want a pattern where there's a bunch of tom hits happening, I would just have to figure it out so that each of my hands would be able to hit the appropriate toms in the appropriate order as I'm doing my sort of alternating hits here. Now, at first glance, this layout seems like it makes sense, right? Logically. So it's like, okay, each hand has equal access to the same amount of drums and cymbals. I'm playing alternating strokes and I just have to divide the work between each hand equally. That actually makes a lot of sense, right? Well, there is one major problem with this layout from my experience. And I want to take a minute here to be very clear. This video is not to bash or disparage anyone who uses the mirror layout or teaches the mirror layout. It's totally fine if they do. It's totally fine if you use it. I'm not against it. I just wanted to point out what I've seen as sort of a fundamental issue with the mirror layout that may not have been noticed or addressed by many people. And this is just because my background is in acoustic drumming. I've been playing acoustic drums for almost 14 years now, and 8 years ago, I started applying my acoustic drum kit skills to the pad controller. So I came in as a drummer, I knew how to play a drum kit, and I applied that to the pads. So I don't think that's very common. I haven't really seen a lot of finger drumming instructors that come from an extensive acoustic drumming background or training. And again, nothing against those people. Their layout, it does make sense logically, but from an acoustic drummer perspective, there is one significant issue. So going back to our pad layout here, if we use the mirror layout, as a beginner playing beginner level beats and rhythms, just simple drum rhythms, the mirror layout will work just fine. Actually, there are many different pad layouts you could use that will all work totally fine as a beginner, okay? So there's a lot of different ways you could set up your pads and get to a pretty decent level of, good timing and good hits and playing some cool drum fills and grooves and stuff like that without running into any resistance or obstacles. However, once you get to an advanced level, once you keep developing your skills, and if you decide, wow, I really want to keep pushing myself and become a really skilled finger drummer, with the mirror layout, you will run into some fundamental issues. I'm going to demonstrate that for you here. So with my layout, I have basically a layout that isolates my two hands. So I have essentially my dominant hand is doing certain things and my non-dominant hand is doing certain other things. And they're playing in isolation from each other, which means that each hand can play totally separate rhythms that combine and work in tandem to form the full compound rhythm that you hear. And this is how real acoustic drumming works. You know, a drummer holding their drumsticks, their right hand is capable of doing whatever it wants. You know, it can play a steady backbeat on the hi-hat or the ride cymbal or whatever, and the left hand can do a completely different pattern on another drum or another few drums or whatever it is, you know. You could be playing a crazy polyrhythm, you know, 9 hits on the ride for every 16 hits on your hi-hat, you know, and that's due to hand isolation, the fact that you can isolate your two hands and use them separately from each other. With the mirror layout, your hands are working completely together to play the same rhythm. So you just have to figure out how to fit all your alternating hits into your whole kit. Now, I'm going to demonstrate for you a really advanced style of drumming on the pads, which in my experience will only work if you're using hand isolation. So let me just show you what's actually possible when you use an isolated hand layout. So the purpose of that was not to show off, it was just to show you that you really can take your finger drumming skills to a super high advanced level with, you know, really precise and realistic dynamics and fills and feel and timing and all sorts of strange polyrhythmic, you know, compound rhythms and stuff that you can do. And with the mirror layout, I think it's just an oversimplification and it provides some challenges when you get up to that really advanced level of finger drumming. Again, it'll work fine for beginners, but if you want to keep developing, you'll eventually run into obstacles, because imagine trying to play everything I just played with 100% alternating hits on your hands, right? So that if you run that back and watch the section again, you'll notice there were a lot of times when, you know, my dominant hand was playing a steady backbeat on the hi-hat, and then my non-dominant hand is doing really fast kick drum rolls, you know, and then maybe the hands come together to play a fast fill down the toms, and then they separate again to play two different rhythms, you know, up on the ride cymbal or something like that. So with the mirror layout, trying to play all of that with just alternating hands, you know, spread amongst your fingers, but essentially just alternating hands, it's just not going to work. It's gonna be way too difficult. It might even be impossible. It might be possible, but it's gonna be really, really, really challenging, as opposed to learning how to isolate your hands and getting them to work together to play compound rhythms, but still be in isolation. That is the key to realistic drumming, and that is how acoustic drummers play. They play with isolation. So again, this video is not to talk down on anyone who uses or teaches the mirror layout. I've just seen this sort of glaring issue with the capabilities of the layout at a higher level. So I think, you know, if you're learning a musical instrument and you feel like, wow, I'm really into this, I want to take my skills to a high level, it would make sense to learn the best possible foundation that you can. So imagine, for example, if someone who's learning piano, if when they started out, they had their keys arranged in an order that maybe seemed logical, but, you know, when they started to play advanced level stuff, they realized, oh wow, the ordering of my black and white keys needs to change. There's a lot of stuff I can't play. How crazy would that be, and how complicated and confusing would that be to the muscles to try to rearrange your black and white keys, you know, if you could. So that's sort of the thing with finger drumming, is we can make our layout whatever we want, but without proper standardization of effective methods, you know, people coming up with methods that are proven and tested for really advanced playing, without creating these standard methods and then sharing them, it's going to be pretty difficult for new finger drummers to eventually reach that advanced level without running into the roadblocks and then realizing, oh wow, I have to almost start from the beginning again and learn a new layout. So if you want to see my exact pad setup, I have a video for that. I'm gonna link that in the description of this video down below so you can go and watch that. That's my basic pad setup tutorial. And that video is actually taken straight from the Dragon Finger Drums Academy, which is a all new finger drumming educational platform that we've just launched. We're super excited about it. It's got dozens and dozens of finger drumming lessons organized into categories and levels from beginner to intermediate to advanced levels. And everything is broken down into super digestible lessons and segments so that you're working on different topics of drumming and building them all up together at the same time to really make yourself a strong and comprehensive and well-balanced finger drummer. So if you want to check that out, we're offering a free trial to anyone who signs up. So you can go also to the link in our description, or you can just go to dragonfingerdrums.com. And if you have any suggestions for future lesson videos like this that you'd like us to make, or you have any questions about finger drumming in particular, just leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching and happy finger drumming.